In America, we're going to do our best not to become crazy as well and start calling people Hitler and saying extreme things. It's hard to resist, but we're going to. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8, the show that is the sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink. DVR it if you can figure out how that works. But more than anything, we'll see you back here tomorrow. And in the meantime, stay tuned for Sean Hannity, live from New York City.
Hang on.
Sean.
Lying, pomposity, smugness, groupthink. I got it. I got it all.
We're against him.
Welcome to Hannity. Wait till you see our timeline tonight. Huge breaking news. Learning that the anti-FBI Trump hater, Peter Strzok, has been escorted from FBI headquarters. He's out of the building. Why does he still have a job? And we also know that James Comey tonight is under investigation, and Andrew McCabe may now face criminal charges. Now, Robert Mueller's witch hunt has now been exposed for rampant, huge political bias, as the origins of this so-called investigation were clearly illegitimate. And finally, tonight, we can report that the United States has, in fact, pulled out of the UN's so-called phony Human Rights Council, and it's about time. Sit tight, stay tuned, buckle up. We are gaining huge momentum. And tonight's very important breaking news, opening monologue. Peter Strzok has now been shown the door. According to his lawyer, the now infamous Trump-hating FBI agent is still collecting a paycheck. He has been escorted out of the FBI Bureau headquarters after the IG report highlighted his rampant pro-Hillary and anti-Trump bias. Now, we have known about this forever. Why didn't this happen earlier? Why does he still have a job? Now, we have been sounding the alarm about Peter Strzok for months, and now everything that we have been telling you is coming true right before your eyes. Now, it's definitely the year of the boomerang. Now, this is so important because the facts now are irrefutable. Peter Strzok, he was the lead agent in Hillary Clinton's 2016 criminal investigation, where we know she committed felonies, where we know she mishandled classified top secret information on a private server. We also know she obstructed justice, deleting 33,000 subpoenaed emails, acid washing the hard drives with bleach bit, and having aides destroy the evidence with hammers, and removing SIM cards just for good luck. These are all irrefutable facts. Peter Strzok was the guy, the agent that played the key role in drafting, remember, her exoneration letter with James Comey months before Strzok actually even interviewed Clinton or 17 other people. The same Peter Strzok who was then tapped to play the lead role in the phony Trump-Russia collusion investigation. Now, he hates Trump, so he fixed the Hillary Clinton investigation. Then he starts going after Trump. He's the lead guy in every case. And after months of inquiries, months of obstruction, the DOJ and multiple discoveries, we can now for you put together what is an accurate timeline of this destructive bias culture at some of the highest levels of the FBI. It all starts with Trump-hating FBI lovebird Peter Strzok and his mistress, Lisa Page. Now look at this. Way back in 2015, Strzok texting Page, "Bernie Sanders is an idiot like Trump." On February 12, 2016, from Page, "He simply cannot be president." And Strzok texts back, "Oh, abysmal." And the text continues, and this is an important one. On February 24th, 2016, Page texting, "Hillary Clinton might be our next president. The last thing you need, us going in there loaded for bear." And Peter Strzok, who conducts the interview with Hillary, is the lead investigator in the case, agrees. In other words, time to cover our backs, fix the Clinton investigation. She's going to be our next president. We want to be on her good side. Then on March 3rd, 2016, Trump is a lonesome human being. He's awful. Hillary should win 100 million to 0. This man cannot be president. And on March 16, 2016, "I can't believe that Donald Trump is a serious candidate for president." The lead investigator in the Clinton server case, and by the way, would be the lead in the start of this so-called Trump-Russia witch hunt. And on June 11th, Strzok calls Trump bigoted. On July 18th, Page calls Trump an enormous, well, expletive. On July 21st, Strzok calls Trump a disaster. And by the way, he's only days away from beginning the Trump so-called collusion investigation. These texts are even more troubling, and they take a more troubling turn. Let's look at July 5th, 2016. Remember, Comey that day announced the FBI would not be pursuing charges against Hillary Clinton. Now, sometime shortly thereafter, the FBI opened their investigation into so-called Trump-Russia collusion. And again, we all know Strzok played a vital role in both these investigations, a lead role in both of them. Then July 31st, 2016, just days after Hillary Clinton's investigation ended, the fix was in and the Trump investigation started. This is what Strzok texted then. Damn, this feels momentous because this matters. The other one did too, but that was to ensure we didn't F something up. This matters because this matters. So super glad to be on this voyage with you. Why does it matter? Because this investigation, what? It can hurt Trump? And the other investigation, we can't mess it up because we're rigging Hillary Clinton's investigation so she's not charged like everybody else in America would have been charged? And look at this exchange just days later, August 8th, 2016, Page writing, Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? Strzok responded, no, he's not. We'll stop it. And then on August 15, 2016, Strzok telling Page, there's no way he gets elected. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. This matters. We'll stop it. An insurance policy in case he gets elected. All comments from two senior FBI officials responsible for investigating one candidate for president and then the other candidate that they hate for something that was never, ever should have been started, to be honest. And there's more. Following that exchange, more anti-Trump text, August 26, 2016. Strzok is now the lead investigator in the case of Donald Trump. Quote, just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support. October 19th, Strzok says Trump is a bleeping idiot. On November 7th, in response to an article predicting a possible Trump victory, Strzok writes, oh my God, this is effing terrifying. And after the election, November 13th, 2016, Page writing, I bought all the president's men. I figured I needed to brush up on Watergate. After all, you, my boyfriend, are trying to take him down. Now, keep in mind, this is just a small sample. Hundreds and hundreds of these anti-Trump, pro-Hillary texts from Strzok and Page, and so many anti-Trump messages from at least 3 other high-ranking, unnamed FBI officials. Now, these were the people that cleared Hillary Clinton of obvious felonies. They rigged that investigation. She would not get charged, not be removed from being the nominee of the Democratic Party the way every other American would. They felt like they knew better than we. You know, we're the smelly people that like Walmart because you get good deals there. Then there was this, of course, the same people tasked with investigating Trump. Now, is this what we call justice in the United States? This is what we call a free and fair investigation. Today, the lawyer for Peter Strzok actually implied his client was the victim of political targeting. Did he read his client's own texts? By the way, I do have advice for Strzok and his attorney tonight. It's the same advice I offered Comey before he released his ridiculous self-serving book and went on that ridiculous book tour. You do, Peter Strzok. You do have the right to remain silent. I'm suggesting you use it. And earlier, Inspector General Michael Horowitz was back on the Hill, this time in front of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, where he was absolutely grilled over his findings and surrounding the destructive level of bias among the highest levels in the FBI. Now, take a look at this moment from House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy. He's back on his game. Take a look.
So I want to go back to the no, he's not going to be president. We'll stop it. What do you think the it is in that phrase, we'll stop it?
Oh, I think it's clear from the context. We're going to stop him from becoming president.
That's what I thought, too. Now, I wonder who the we is.
Well, I think that's probably subject to multiple interpretations.
We'll see if we can go through a couple of them.
Or a broader group beyond that.
I mean, it's hard to fathom a definition of we that doesn't include him. So we know he's part of we. You could assume that the person he's talking with is FBI attorney who also happens to be working on the Russia investigation. She may be part of the we. But I wonder, Inspector General, did you find any other FBI agents or FBI attorneys who manifest any animus or bias against President Trump?
We did.
How many?
We found 3 additional FBI agents, as we detail in the report.
Now, next, and this is really important, Chairman Gowdy questioned Horowitz over his findings that there was no material evidence of political bias. Meanwhile, the document is filled with political bias in terms of corrupt in the FBI investigations. They're both corrupt. They both were run by biased people. You can't have that in the United States, especially one that's impacting a presidential election. Take a look.
They prejudged the outcome of the Hillary Clinton investigation before the investigation ended, and these exact same FBI agents and attorneys prejudged the outcome of the Russia investigation before it even began. If prejudging the outcome of an investigation before it ends and prejudging the outcome of an investigation before it begins is not evidence of outcome determinative bias, for the life of me, I don't know what would be. That is textbook bias. It is quite literally the definition of bias, allowing something other than the facts to determine your decision. These agents were calling her president before she was even interviewed. They were calling for the end of the Trump campaign before the investigation even began. They were calling for impeachment simply because he happened to be elected. That is bias.
This is the very definition of bias. Exactly. Now, we know that the anti-Trump political influence here that sparked this entire Russia investigation in the first place, thank God, it is rightly under review because it's illegitimate, was from day one, and needs to end. Period. End of sentence. This has been a politically biased witch hunt from the get-go. Watch this.
The infamous text from Peter Strzok saying, "We will stop President Trump from taking office," which we received on the day of your report's release, is a prime example. This text was revealed to you late in your interview as well, as I understand. Do you believe this text shows political bias?
I think, as we found, it clearly shows a biased state of mind.
And if so, do you believe the political bias shown by this text had an effect on the initiation of the Russia investigation?
I think, as you know, Mr. Chairman, that's a matter we've got under review and are looking at right now.
More to be determined on that.
More to be determined.
But the time proximity, as Mr. Gowdy pointed out, is significant.
Correct. In fact, there are these other text messages in roughly the same time period.
Unbelievable. Now, we'll have more on that huge development in just a minute. But first, take a look at this clip of Chairman Gowdy turning his attention to Horowitz's findings about the disgraced former FBI Director James Comey. Remember, he was the leader of the pack. Take a look at these blistering remarks.
We see Jim Comey and Jim Comey alone deciding which DOJ policies to follow and which to ignore. When he lost confidence in the Trump Justice Department, he memorialized private conversations, he leaked them, and he admitted he did so to spur the appointment of special counsel because he didn't trust the career prosecutors at the Department of Justice. When he lost confidence in the Obama Justice Department, he didn't make special memos. He didn't share them with his law professor friends. He didn't leak the information. He didn't lift a finger to get special prosecutor. Instead, he appointed himself FBI director, attorney general, special counsel, lead investigator, and the general arbiter of what is good and right in the world, according to him.
And of course, indignant Jim Comey was rightfully fired. Now, even crooked Comey himself is under investigation. Why? For mishandling classified information. Ironically, the very crime he exonerated Hillary Clinton over. Yeah, the year of the boomerang. And let's be clear, none of this is normal. James Comey's FBI is in ruins. Watch this.
Mr. Horowitz, James Comey, Director of the FBI, Andy McCabe, Deputy Director, Chief of Staff Jim Rubicki, General Counsel Jim Baker, FBI Counsel Lisa Page, and Deputy Head of Counterintelligence Peter Strzok. These were 6 important people at the FBI, is that right?
Correct.
And they were the key players on the Clinton investigation and on the Russian investigation, correct?
They were certainly important on both.
Has Mr. Comey been fired?
Yes.
Has Mr. McCabe been fired?
Yes.
Did Mr. McCabe lie under oath, according to your report?
In our view, yes.
Yeah. Is there a criminal referral for Mr. McCabe?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Has Mr. Rubicki left the FBI?
Yes.
Has General Counsel Jim Baker left the FBI?
Yes.
Was he removed from his position prior to leaving the FBI?
I'm not sure of that.
Has Lisa Page left the FBI?
Yes.
Was she reassigned prior to leaving the FBI?
I believe so.
And has Peter Strzok been removed from his position as Deputy Head of Counterintelligence?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Horowitz, you've been in the DOJ for 10 years. You've been Inspector General for 6 years. You're Chief of all the Inspector Generals. Have you ever seen anything like this at any other federal agency in your time in the federal government? 6 of the top people fired, demoted, reassigned, or left?
I obviously can't speak broadly to other areas that I haven't known before, but yes, this is.
I've been in this town 11 and a half years. I've never seen anything like this. Even the IRS scandal didn't come close.
Look at your screen. This represents all of the turnover surrounding the deep state's blatant effort to elect Hillary Clinton and destroy Donald Trump. He was never supposed to win. Now, by the way, this didn't go according to plan, obviously, and now America's sad, abusive federal bureaucracy, something we never thought could happen here, is being exposed, and the deep state crumbling right before our very eyes. Now, sadly, all of this is happening despite the best efforts from Deputy AG, Mr. Helpful, Mr. Obstruction, Rod Rosenstein. Take a look.
Mr. Rosenstein decided we couldn't get it until your report came out. He sat on it for a month of time.
I can't speak to how they.
Well, it's not the first time Mr. Rosenstein has kept us from getting information. I mean, he's hid information from us. He redacted all kinds of important conversations between Strzok and Page. He redacted that from us. We had to go over to the Justice Department and find it. So this wouldn't be the first time he hasn't given us information, frankly, I think we're entitled to. I want to well, I got 30 seconds. I don't have time to get into another subject area here. Mr. Horowitz, I appreciate that, but I do think it's interesting that you had it, you discovered it, and we couldn't get it right away. Like all the other text messages, we had to wait until the final report.
The deep state, the swamp protects their own, and this is merely one example. Now, the constant stonewalling, the slow walking coming from the Justice Department has now led Judicial Watch to sue the Department of Justice for the release of Andrew Weissman's text messages related to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. As you know, Weissman, big-time Democratic donor, tapped by Robert Mueller to play the lead role in the ongoing Russia witch hunt. New York Times called Weissman Mueller's pit bull. He was at Hillary's, quote, victory party. Didn't work out that way. And we have frequently documented Weissman's prosecutorial misconduct many times on this show. Now, we'll keep you updated on that story as this FOIA request plays out in court. Now, tonight, with McCabe fired and potentially facing charges, Strzok on his way out, Comey under investigation, Weissman is now in the spotlight. In terms of bias in Mueller's witch hunt is now being reviewed. In other words, our two-tiered system of justice, thankfully, hopefully, I pray, is being dismantled brick by brick. And thank God, because as Chairman Gowdy said earlier today, we cannot survive with a justice system that is this corrupt. If we don't get this right, these are my comments, and as we know it should be and expect it to be, a constitutional republic, equal application of under the law, equal justice under the law, guess what? The United States in truth will no longer exist. Here now with reaction, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, author of the brand new book, The Russia Hoax. And of course, yeah, the conspiracy here to save Hillary Clinton and destroy Donald Trump, which is out in just a couple of weeks. Boy, did you nail that title. When did you make the title? Because all the news tonight fits exactly right into the book.
Well, the title was initially written in December when I started writing the book. And, you know, every day seems to establish more evidence in support of that title. And today was a perfect example of it. It was a blistering denunciation of James Comey, who is bereft of judgment and temperament and competence. And one of the things that was brought out by Trey Gowdy today is here's James Comey, who fought a special counsel in the Hillary Clinton case and yet stole government documents, leaked them to the media to trigger a special counsel in the Donald Trump case. You know, if this isn't evidence of bias that led to a dilating investigation without crimes of a president of the United States, I don't know what is.
You know, and Sarah, we can all say the wheels of justice churn ever so slowly because all of this we've been reporting in the lead up to the last 2 days and last Thursday. Now the question is, where does it go from here?
Where does it go from here is that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein needs to give those documents to Congress. We need to understand what was being done. What was the FBI doing at the beginning of this investigation? Who were these informants? Were they being paid? These are questions that need to be answered. And I think that once those documents are turned over, if they're turned over, I mean, think about this, Sean. Congress has to fight tooth and nail for every single document. Representative, Jim Jordan today was very explicit explicit. He said, you know, Rod Rosenstein was withholding this information from Congress. And secondly, I really hope and sincerely hope that Peter Strzok doesn't just become the scapegoat. We need to investigate investigate him thoroughly, but we also need to know McCabe's role in all of this, Bill Priestup's role in all of this, Jim Rybicki's role in all of this. These guys have created a culture of corruption inside the FBI. And
where is
really
the accountability, though, Sarah? This is really important because you're raising a great point. In other words, there were crimes committed here. You cannot, in so many of these instances, anybody else would have been in jail. And if you rig an investigation, that's obstruction in and of itself, ironically, but truthfully.
They rigged an investigation on an incoming president. This is what's so incredible to me. You have armed officers of the law that we trust, that we entrust with our lives, that we entrust to investigate, to be equal under the law. And what we've discovered is that people with this type of power, with power, insurmountable power, have gone after a president, a duly elected president of the United States.
But it's deeper. And they also they helped to rig the investigation to save one from felonies. Obvious felonies, incontrovertible evidence.
Obvious felonies, and there needs to be an investigation.
And in terms of the legality and the crimes that we now know here, who now, if you're looking at your legal notebook, who now is in jeopardy legally?
Well, James Comey, certainly. And we do know the Inspector General is investigating James Comey. He revealed it over the course of the last 2 days. And the FBI, it was very interesting to learn from Christopher Wray that it appears that the FBI is investigating James Comey for lying and the Inspector General for leaking classified documents. So James Comey, I mean, wait till the second part of the Inspector General's report comes out. It will not be good for James Comey because he's also going to be delving into whether he abused his position of power by using a fabricated document, the dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton, to wiretap the Trump campaign.
I got to break. It's interesting. The rest of the media spent, in one case, cable news, 2 minutes on one network and 5 on another. It's pathetic. Coming up, President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
With these really dishonest people. And I was never a deep state guy. Let me tell you, we got some bad people that are doing bad things. But when you read that IG report about how she got away with what she got away with, it's a disgrace. It's a total disgrace.
Nobody else would have gotten away with it. The president was right earlier today talking about the DOJ Inspector General's report on the Clinton email probe. Joining us now with reaction, President Trump's attorney, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, you on this program long before you laid out 16, 17, or 18, I don't remember the exact number, of specific crimes. It's all corroborated. Nobody's saying she didn't do these things. The evidence is overwhelming. It's not even in dispute. It's irrefutable. But they gave her a pass. They did something they'd never do for any other American.
The case was fixed corruptly. We now know that. We're way beyond that. We're now in a situation much worse than that. And I have to tell you, I'm very, very gratified because I believe that this is the end of Mueller's investigation effectively. And the President of the United States, my friend and a great president who's off to a terrific start, is going to be vindicated that this is a witch hunt with no evidence and nothing else but a bunch of people who hate him, hate Republicans, hate anything that he stands for, and vowed to get him no matter what. And they have now been caught. The texts are there. You can read them. You have to be an idiot not to realize they're totally biased. And the Mueller investigation is built around them. Strzok, after all, was the lead investigator that Mueller selected. Now it turns out that there are 2 of the unnamed people who were texting equally horrible things about the president with an equal amount of bias, are presently part, I believe this is correct, although this is just a report, they may be part of the Mueller team. We will not know that until Mueller is investigated. As I said the other night, the investigators now need to be investigated if we're going to see justice here. And I'd be darned if we're going to go forward with any kind of cooperation with them if I think there's any doubt that these people are trying to frame him. And I'm beginning not only to doubt it, I'm beginning to believe it.
The very people that rigged Hillary's investigation when she committed felonies, she should have been indicted. Any other, tell that to Christian Saucier. Then they initiated as soon as this was complete, they initiated this Trump-Russia witch hunt. The very same people. Let's talk about it being tainted from the get-go and whether or not it's illegitimate from the get-go.
I believe that this investigation is very, very close to being able to be thrown out. Anything they do, including the Manafort indictment, including the pursuit of Mr. Cohen, and certainly any kind of process they would issue to the President of the United States, they're in jeopardy of having the whole thing thrown out on the fact that Strzok began it. Strzok began it with total bias. They've never produced any evidence of anything. And they're at the point now where they have a group of people, undetermined yet how many, who have an equal amount of bias against the president. And they've been working on this for a year and a half, and they have nothing. There is no evidence of collusion. Let me emphasize this. President Trump said from the beginning, I did nothing wrong. I did not collude, if whatever the heck that means, with the Russians. I never talked to them. I never saw them. I never had anything to do with them.
And he also said one other thing. And these were in Comey's notes, so exculpatory. He said, but if anybody around me did, oh, you need to go after that. I want to ask you about this. Apparently on February 28th, I did not know this till today, you spoke with the Inspector General Michael Horowitz about saying, well, we have a surprise towards the end of the campaign. And you explained what it was. I happen to actually be somebody that can be called as a witness for you, because you talked about that speech and you said, oh, we're thinking about taking out an hour, tell me if I'm wrong, on Sunday night to air. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. 20 minutes. It was going to be on. It was going to be on, I believe, the Friday night before the campaign, following the Reagan script, in which he was going to give a speech to the American people. I happened to show it to the FBI agents. It's in my iPhone, including a text back and forth.
Why didn't you bleach bit it, destroy it into itsy bitsy pieces like Hillary? That would have.
Because I'm not a crook like Hillary. That's why.
Okay, good answer.
Because I respect the rule of law, and actually, I probably would have. But I kind of like the speech.
Well, it's funny because I remember you were advocating very strongly for it. And at one point, I think it was going to happen, if I remember correctly.
Instead, they turned parts of it into 3 or 4 commercials in the battleground states. And actually, in retrospect, they made the right political decision. And I was probably too tied to my speech and would have pushed for it. They also thought I got leaks from FBI agents about Comey and about what Comey was going to do. If you had listened to my criticism of Comey, who the heck around Comey would ever have leaked to me? I mean, he worked for me once. I'm ashamed that I hired him. The guy is going to go to jail, Sean. I mean, I truly believe that if justice means anything... How does Hillary
get away with not going to jail here? I mean, is the statute of limitations passed? We know that the investigation was tainted. Why don't they reopen it?
Well, they are. I believe Horowitz is doing it from an IG point of view. I'm hoping and praying the FBI is doing it from a criminal.
He doesn't have the power to do that, though.
Pardon me?
He doesn't have the power to do that.
No, he can initiate an investigation. He is doing it and make a report like he just did, and then the Justice Department can take it up as a criminal investigation. I did a few of those.
Let me ask you this, a clear question. Do you, in light of all of this, that it was tainted from the beginning, and that the investigation from the beginning obviously was done by people that had a bias, that would render it illegitimate in any objective person's mind. Do you foresee any circumstances under which you would allow the president to talk to Mueller and his team? I have to ask the question. This is my job.
So far, I still have all my senses, and I'm a heck of a lawyer. And I get drummed out of the profession if I did. I mean, the reality is you don't put your client in a kangaroo court. I'm going to have him go in with a guy like Weissman, who was at her loss party, or somebody who donated $36,000 to her campaign. An investigation started by Strzok with an undetermined number of agents presently there who have equal amount of bias expressed in text messages.
How sad, Mr.
Now, how
Mayor,
about getting them, Sean? I say to the director of the FBI, shame on you if you don't catch those guys and throw them out like you threw Strzok out, and you took a year and a half to do that.
Yeah. By the way, he's still getting paid. He's still getting paid.
Come on. I mean, this is totally crazy. But the question now is how much more of that is going on presently? I believe a lot of it. That's why they invaded a lawyer's office and
did you say today they could raid your office?
Solitary confinement.
Did you say today they could raid your office?
Well, they better not. I mean, I'll sue them for everything they're worth. But the reality is they're not going to find anything.
I agreed. All right. Mr. Mayor, I have to do my job. You know, I don't have to mock me for doing my job. Thanks for being with us. When we come back, Ed Henry with a live report from the White House. Two major stories we're following tonight. House with much more. Fox News chief national correspondent, fellow Singapore visitor, Ed Henry. A lot going on today, Ed.
Absolutely, Sean. And Fox has confirmed tonight that Peter Strzok, the controversial FBI agent, was escorted out of FBI headquarters here in Washington last Friday. But it appears that for now, at least, he still has a job. We spoke to his attorney, who put out a statement and says that Strzok is cooperating with an internal investigation at the FBI. Interesting, because we're learning that on the same day that Strzok again came under fire, as did former FBI Director James Comey at a House hearing where Republicans asserted that bad apples at the agency were so biased that they prejudged not just the outcome of the Hillary Clinton email probe, but also the outcome of the Russia investigation involving President Trump. Republican Trey Gowdy pressed on a newly revealed text from 2016 in which Strzok talked about stopping Trump from being elected. Democrat Elijah Cummings, you see him there. He openly admitted at the hearing he'd prefer to distract and talk instead about the child migration controversy, at one point charging that the president has set up child internment camps. That's the phrase that Cummings used. Tonight, the president, meanwhile, wrapped up an urgent meeting on Capitol Hill with House Republicans on immigration. They're floating bills that would allow immigrant families to stay together while they wait for an immigration judge to hear their case. White House officials say the president could support one of those bills, but only if it has funding for a border wall, other border security measures. And Democrat Chuck Schumer has said he will not support such a measure. It's interesting because Schumer has been complaining about these detention centers, about the way children are being treated at the border. But he's saying tonight he's not going to support legislation that would actually fix this problem and make sure that children are not separated from their families. Schumer's stated reason is he thinks it'll take too long to pass legislation, and it would be easier for the president to just use his pen and change this on an executive basis. I can tell you White House officials here think that the real reason is he wants to keep this political issue alive, Sean.
I think those people are right. Ed Henry at the White House, thank you. Here with reaction, former federal prosecutor, Fox News contributor Andrew McCarthy, Florida Congressman, Freedom Caucus member Matt Gaetz. For those that aren't following Andy's writing on NRO, a lot of people there don't particularly like me. It has been phenomenal. You have been on top of your game. Your columns have been dead on accurate. And this probably hits you hard because of your background. You prosecuted the blind shake, first World Trade Center bombing, that issue you were involved in.
Yeah, Sean, it's not only that. A lot of the people who are players in this, I actually know them for 20 or 30 years. So it's a lot of it's unpleasant.
Is the same people, would you first of all agree that Hillary, frankly, it was rigged? She committed felonies. Do you have any doubt about that?
No, I don't. I thought it was rigged from the beginning. I really think that once President Obama in particular laid out what I think is a contorted construction of the Espionage Act statute, which is what they investigated her under. That was, I mean, look at the fact that they've investigated Trump for conveying signals with respect to Flynn on that theory. You know, what Obama did was basically say he didn't want Mrs. Clinton prosecuted, and he laid out a theory of the Espionage Act that I don't think can be justified by reading the act, and everybody just acted accordingly.
Is there a bigger, more obvious case of obstruction than how Hillary Clinton handled her emails?
I don't think so, and very little attention has been paid to the fact that all got bleach-bitted or whitewashed or whatever happened to it. When those documents and those emails were under subpoena, it seems to me that that's one of the issues that hasn't gotten nearly enough.
Let me ask this. When the same people that rigged that investigation then immediately, I mean, almost the next week, begin the investigation, Trump-Russia collusion, does that not render that whole investigation illegitimate? And are you upset about the team that Mueller's put together? Jeannie Ray, who was a lawyer for the Clinton Foundation, Andrew Weissman's atrocious record, Democratic donors. They couldn't find one Republican or independent donor to put on Mueller's team, not one?
I think for Mueller's own sake, Sean, he should have been much more attuned to the politics of the investigation. But I think the agents themselves have always thought of these two investigations as two sides of the same coin. When Cruz dropped out of the race on May 4th of 2016, the first reaction that Strzok has is to say to Page, man, we really got to wrap up the Clinton emails investigation now, as he called it, the mid-year exam. To them, it was all one thing. It was
this
two
one
sides
matters,
of the same.
though, Andy. This one matters.
Yeah, well, look, I think the worst one, Sean, is the day that he joins, or he was talking about joining the Mueller campaign, or the Mueller, maybe that's a Freudian slip, the Mueller investigation.
I think that's about right. The Mueller witch hunt, oh, that's what I call it.
Right, but what does he say? He says it's an opportunity for him to get to some unfinished business.
Oh, and to stop Trump. Right. Remember, stop Trump. All right, let me go to Matt Gaetz. All right, so we've had all this obstruction. This meeting takes place Friday. Paul Ryan, Devin Nunes, Gowdy Goodlatte, promising documents, or Ryan says he will join in the efforts to hold Rosenstein in contempt, and maybe that leads to the impeachment of Rosenstein. And from what I'm hearing, that may happen as early as tomorrow, Matt Gaetz.
Well, I'm just sick of the games and I'm sick of the delays. If we were really serious about oversight, we'd say the documents will be present at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And if they're not, at 10:01, we start the impeachment proceedings regarding Rod Rosenstein. I mean, you look at the facts you just discovered, Sean. The migration of people from the Hillary Clinton email investigation to the Mueller probe was about as voluminous as the migration across the southern border. And it's obvious that any prosecution or impeachment of Donald Trump would necessarily require Peter Strzok as the star witness. Well, if you had Peter Strzok as your star witness, you'd be wishing you had Mark Furman as your star witness. They threw the bum out of the building, and rightfully so.
Well, he still has a job, which is absurd. Andy, would you allow President Trump to testify before Mueller's group, considering we now know it was tainted from the beginning, and this corrupt team, from my perspective, Weissman, Jeannie Ray?
I wouldn't have needed even all that, Sean. I would not. I don't see any upside for the president in sitting for an interview.
Thank you both. We appreciate it. When we come back, President Trump blasting obstructionist Democrats, calling on lawmakers to finally act on immigration reform and do their job. We'll tell you what he said and more straight ahead.
Our federal laws, most illegal immigrant families and minors from Central America who arrive unlawfully at the border cannot be detained together or removed together, only released. These are crippling loopholes that cause family separation, which we don't want.
The president said we don't want that earlier today, talking about the need for new immigration laws to end the crippling loopholes. Here with a reaction, Judicial Watch's Director of Investigations, Chris Farrell, the author of the bestseller, The Geraldo Show, Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo, the Democrats, we just heard Ed Henry's report, the Democrats have had a deal, a DACA fix, and they've had a fix on separation for kids. And Schumer's answer is no. Why? Because he wants it for politics. They're playing politics. Fix the law and do your job. That's for both sides.
Sean,
you
be
support
that
the
as
compromise.
It may. Be that as it may. Politics aside.
Forget be that as it may. They can fix it tomorrow, Geraldo.
This is cruelty as policy. This is an obscenity. This is the government of the United States and the president that we both love, advocating a system by which young children are torn from their mothers.
Geraldo,
Sean,
you have agreed with me.
History will judge us, Sean. History will judge us.
Geraldo,
we must take a stand on something.
I don't want to.
Here's where we draw the line.
Let me be clear. I want no separation. The president, and you supported him, offered a DACA fix and a fix on this law, as horrible as it is. Immediately, he'll sign it. And he gets the law in exchange.
No matter what the president has done or will say, this is the only thing people are thinking about. This is getting more attention than Korea. This is getting more attention than the trade wars with China. This is all 2,300 children have been torn from their parents forcibly. These are little babies, 18 months old. These are 10-year-olds with disabilities.
Right, Chris,
they're taken from their parents. This is impossible. We cannot condone this. The Republicans are the party of faith and family.
Nobody condones it. That's the
when
point.
When did we become the party of child
Emergency
abusers?
session of Congress. Congress, fix the law, take the DACA
He
deal,
doesn't need
take
a law.
the separation fix deal, and fund the wall so it ends the problem long term.
He implemented this, Sean, on May the 7th.
Let me go to Chris.
He can discontinue it tonight, and I hope he does. I pray
Sean,
he
the
does.
demagoguery and the virtue posturing are repulsive. This has been a problem that's been in existence for literally decades. The fact that the president wishes to enforce the law shouldn't shock anyone. There's also a legal case, a consent decree, in a case called Flores v. Reno, which further constrains and restricts ICE and Border Patrol from doing their jobs. It's not simply a matter of a statute that needs to be reworked. There's case law that also constrains the situation. It can be fixed, it should be fixed, but look, anyone who's getting hysterical over children being separated from their parents
This
needs
is
to
not
realize
hysterica.
that there
This is
are
not hysterical. This is
there are
child
criminals.
abuse.
Keep screaming.
How dare you?
Let me reason to my friend here. Geraldo, would you support
There are criminals that are exploiting children.
Geraldo,
that's a fact.
Will you support this? An emergency session of Congress. Take the DACA, take the separation fix, take the funding of the wall, and both houses do their job and the president signs it. It could happen tomorrow.
I agree, but before tomorrow, tonight, the president should end this policy.
But you're not answering my question. How about Congress also do their job?
We cannot inflict
How about they not play politics either here? You cannot be that naive in this case.
Sean, there are 2,300 babies without their mothers tonight.
All right.
You know, just because you don't have sincere emotions, don't say I don't.
All right.
Well, it doesn't need to go over the edge into hysteria.
All right. Thank you both. When we come back, United States withdraws from the UN Human Rights Council. I'll tell you why it is